And hello and welcome to Scalino's Field on the campus of Cal Poly Pomona. Dave Silvera on the play-by-play. So glad you could join us from wherever you may be for this non-league matchup featuring the Long Beach Legends and the Inland Valley Buccaneers. Of course, the Long Beach Legends come in 11-3-1, and they are a very, very good program. They were actually in the SCCBL last year, but left for the OCCL to kind of stay close to home and be in Orange County. Meanwhile, the Inland Valley Buccaneers are 2-8. 2-4 in league play. Obviously, they had 4 games in just about 48 hours in San Diego this past weekend and suffered a very, very tough loss in Game 2, a game that took 2 days to complete, to be exact. And they actually won the first game, so it started out well. And then it was tied 8-8 at the end of 9. They ended up going 4 more innings and extra innings. And then in the 13th inning, the final run came home to score on a wild pitch. So a very tough loss for the Inland Valley Buccaneers, as it looked like they had kind of turned the corner, taking 1 from the Heat and 1 from Team San Diego to get the 2-1 in league play and temporarily actually be in first place in the SCCBL. As we are just about set to get the first pitch underway here at 5 o'clock at Cal Poly Pomona. So glad you joined us. First pitch is a fastball that misses high and away from Kevin Glom. Kevin Glom, the large right-handed pitcher for the Buccaneers. Working out of the windup. Here's the pitch. This one's in at the knees, called strike 1, and it's 1-1. Kevin Glom is very talented, as we mentioned. So far, 8 1/3 innings pitched this season, and a 4.31 ERA. Here's the pitch from Glom. Swung on and missed, and that's strike 2, and it's 1-2. Up at the plate is Tanner Negretti, the shortstop for the Long Beach Legends. We'll get to the defensive alignment and the starting lineup in just a few moments as Kevin Glom takes a sigh and fires. This one swung and fell out of play down the first base line. Well, here's the starting lineup for the Legends. It'll be Negretti leading off. Then it's Ferreira. Then Humbert, Schwartz, Agramente, Harris, Argumendo, Hornsby, Franklin, and Conrad is the extra hitter. Swung on and missed, strike 3. So that is the first out here in the game via the strikeout by Kevin Glom. As we are just underway here at Scalino's Field, Kevin Glom, as we mentioned, 6'5", 225-pound right-handed hurler. He'll be a senior next season for Loyola Marymount. Very, very strong athletic background for Glom. As Zach Ferreira comes up to the plate for his first cuts. Breaking ball misses low, and it's 1-0. Glom. The reason he chose to go to Loyola Marymount is because his brother Michael actually set the precedent and was there first in 2004 to 2008. This one swung on and driven through the right side hole past the glove of Teagle, and that'll be the first hit of the day for the Legends. So 1 man on, 1 out, top of the first inning. Pirates and Legends doing battle. The Legends wearing their gray shirts, white pants, while the Bucs are in their white shirt, their white cutoff sleeve shirts with red undershirts, and then the white pants. We'll give you the defensive alignment now for the Buccaneers. It's Ryan in left field, /Wild in center, Rabito in right, as Glom works from the stretch for the first time. Fastball in there for strike 1, and it's 0-1 to Greg Humbert. Then in the infield, we've got Bryce Brooks at third, Anthony Seminaris at short, Michael Smith at second, Teagle at first, and Campbell behind the dish. Checking the runner is Glom, and now he fires home. A breaking ball swung on and missed, then is 0-2. Actually, a little bit of wind here today. You don't see that much wind out here in Cal Poly Pomona that often. Normally it's a very dry, desert-like weather. But my tent is actually flying up in the air a little bit. Glom checks the runner, fires home. This one is bounced over to the shortstop. Charging is Seminaris. He'll fire over for the force out, and they'll try to get 2, but they just can't turn it. But they do get the force at second, so that's the second out here in the inning. As Humbert reaches on the fielder's choice, and the cleanup hitter, Baron Schwartz, steps up to the plate. Well, not only did Kevin Glom's brother Michael play for D1 baseball, but his sister also played at Loyola Marymount for volleyball. And then on top of that, their father, Christian, played basketball at Santa Clara. So 4 members of the family playing Division I athletics, as this one is swung on and missed, and it's 0-1. So just imagine that gene pool just runs through the bloodlines for them to be very successful athletes, and not just athletes, but also very successful in the classroom. Here's the pitch. This one misses low and away, and it's 1-1. Glom, one of the few guys not really from the Southern California area, although there's a couple here on the Buccaneers that have come from far and wide, including Tanner Thibodeau. He's from Omaha. Here's the pitch from Glom. Breaking ball misses inside, and it's 2-1. Glom is from San Jose, so it's not as far as Nebraska, but it is a good little move out from Northern California down here to Southern California. Of course, there he played for Bellarmine College Prep, where he was an all-conference selection. Also played football for them. Here's the pitch. Fastball misses outside, and it's 3-1. So hitter's pitch to come here to Brian Schwartz. As Teagle actually yelled runner, as the runner at first kind of bluffed on that play. Just underway here at Cal Poly Pomona. Here's the pitch. This one misses high, and that'll be a 5-pitch walk drawn by Schwartz. So the Legends now have 2 men on board here in the top of the first inning, as Michael Agramente comes to the plate. Michael Agramente, the designated hitter, wearing number 28 for the Legends. Time is called for as Michael Smith will have a little conference with his pitcher, Kevin Glom. Bucs actually adding a few players on their roster. Chris Sanchez wearing number 18 and Jacob Cage wearing number 9 will be a couple of the new adds for this team that we figure to see the rest of the season. Also, we notice that we have Luke Asperger here today. I believe he was in the San Diego series, but we hadn't seen him yet on our air. We're at Cal Poly Pomona yet. Glom checks the runner at second, fires home. This one's swung and fouled back and out of play behind home plate. So as we mentioned, the Buccaneers 2-8, 2-4 in league play. Hoping to get a big non-conference win right here against a team that's played very well in the early going. Here's the pitch. Swings at this one and grounds it. It's a little roller over to the shortstop, Seminaris, and he'll charge and fire over to first base for the final out of the inning. And at the end of 1/2 inning, it remains scoreless from Cal Poly Pomona between the Bucs and Legends. You're listening on InlandValleyBaseball.com. And welcome back to Cal Poly Pomona. Dave Silvera on the play-by-play as we head to the bottom of the first between the Buccaneers and Legends. No scores so far. We'll get you the starting lineup here for the Buccaneers. This is what their batting order will look like. Leading off in left field is Miles Ryan. Batting second is the extra hitter, Kevin Riley. Of course, in a non-league game, you can send up 10 hitters. Batting third is Bryce Brooks. Batting fourth in the cleanup spot will be Anthony Rabito. Batting fifth, the designated hitter, Jack Spahn. Batting sixth, the catcher, Brandon Campbell. Batting seventh, Anthony Seminaris, the shortstop who made a few plays in that first inning. Batting eighth is Jake Teagle, the first baseman. Ninth, Michael Smith, the second baseman. And last but not least, in center field is Busi/Wyo, batting 10th. Starting pitcher for the Long Beach Legends will be number 35, Danny Scahill from West LA College. Right-handed pitcher. Working against the right-handed hitter, Miles Ryan. Here's the first pitch from him, and this one is cracked foul down the third base line. Ryan was all over that one, jumped on it. Just a little bit out in front, which is why it was fouled on that left field line. Of course, the Buccaneers are going to have a huge test, and I'm sure they've already had a few, certainly in the form of the Pirates, as this one is swung and missed. Way out in front was Ryan on that breaking pitch, and it's now 0-2. But obviously they had the test with the Pirates, and they lost 3 matches to the Pirates. And then they played the Heat. Here's the pitch. This one's swung and driven to the left side, making a backhanded grab deep in the hole is Negretti. But Negretti can't hold on to it, as that will be an infield base hit for Miles Ryan. And so the Bucs are off to a good start here in the bottom of the first inning with their first man on board. And so with the Heat, you said the Bucs answered the bell. They split that series. And actually hit somebody who was up for Player of the Week very well. The Heat pitcher, of course, coming set. Here's Scahill firing. Fastball. This one's cracked down the third base line. Two-hopper over to the third baseman. He fires the second, and they turn it. That's a double play. So Ferreira showing a good reaction to get it out to Humbert, and then Humbert turning it and finishing the deal. And it's a double play for Kevin Riley. So just like that, there's 2 outs here in the first inning. Here comes Bryce Brooks for his first at-bat. Bryce Brooks, 6'3", 180. Of course, he's another guy. We were talking about Kevin Glom, who had baseball in his bloodlines. So too does Bryce Brooks, as this pitch misses low in the dirt, and it's 1-0. He is the nephew of former Major League Baseball player Mark Kotze, who he said has given him a lot of pointers out over this years, especially in hitting. He doesn't need too many pointers for fielding. Here's the pitch to Bryce Brooks, and he lines it straight off the ankle of Danny Scahill, and that will be a base hit, as that one was crushed by Bryce Brooks. So 2 base hits now here in the inning for the Buccaneers. Only 1 man on board. Of course, there was the double play before Brooks's line drive into the ankle of Scahill. The ball actually rolled into foul territory. That's how hard it was hit. Rolled about 5 feet in the foul territory off the ankle of Scahill as Anthony Rubito steps up to the dish. Rubito, the cleanup hitter here today. Another very solid right-handed hitter for this Buccaneer lineup. As we were mentioning that the Buccaneers had faced some challenges in the form of the Heat and then the Pirates and, of course, Team San Diego. And they played very, very well in the first 2 games against Team San Diego. Had a very tough way to lose game 2 and then kind of got beat up pretty bad in the last 2 games. Here's the pitch. This one's outside for ball 1, and it's 1-0 to Anthony Rubito. But Palm Springs, they will make their first ever trip. Obviously, this is the first season for the Buccaneers, but first ever trip out to Palm Springs Stadium tomorrow and Wednesday. As this one misses alone, it's 2-0. So you like to see a 2-0 count for your cleanup hitter, who might be sitting dead red on fastball here, as the pitcher really is going to have to come to him. Pitcher Scahill checks the runner Brooks. Brooks with a small lead off first, not too big, as this fastball just paints the outside, and it's 2-1 to Rubito. Anthony Rubito, 6'0", 195, headed to Orange Coast College. Hometown is Chino Hills, where he went to Iola High School. The runner Brooks is off the pitch. The ball is low in the dirt, and Brooks steals safely over at second base. So Bryce Brooks getting it done with his bat and with his legs here in the first inning. In fact, he actually hit it off the leg of the pitcher, Danny Scahill. So a single and a stolen bag for the number 3 hitter in the lineup. Scahill comes set in the stretch. And off with the pitch once again is Bryce Brooks. This one is swung on. It's a slow roller out to second base. And Humbert has it under control and fires the first for the final out of the inning. And at the end of 1 full inning of play here at Cal Poly Pomona, it remains scoreless between the Long Beach Legends and Inland Valley Buccaneers. You're listening on InlandValleyBaseball.com. And welcome back to Cal Poly Pomona as we head to the top of the second inning between the Long Beach Legends and Inland Valley Buccaneers. Here's the first pitch from Glom, swung and foul tipped, and it's 0-1 to Jake Harris, the center fielder. Of course, if this was last year, well, first of all, the Bucs weren't a team last year, but if they were a team, this would be an SCCBL matchup because the Legends were in the league last year before moving to the OCCL. Swung on and missed at an off-speed pitch, and it's 0-2 here to Harris as Glom, the big right-handed pitcher, has been dealing pretty well so far here for the Buccaneers. Here's the 0-2 offering, and this one is chopped at and fouled back at the screen, so we'll do it again. Another 0-2 count to come here between Glom and Harris. We had our first Players of the Week announced this week here today. Here's the pitch from Glom as this one paints the outside corner, called strike 3, and that'll be the first out of the inning. So Kevin Glom now with his second strikeout here in 1 1/3 innings pitch. As Joe Argumendo, the catcher, will come up to the plate. We had our hitter of the week announced, as well as our pitcher of the week announced. And the hitter of the week went to Team San Diego's Manny Cardero. Had a very, very good statistical week. Also had a home run, a couple triples, 10 RBIs. And then the pitcher of the week, here's the pitch from Glom. Breaking ball misses high, and it's 1-0. The pitcher of the week was Andrew Alvarez for his 8 innings against the Power. And the only pitcher so far to give a loss to the Power, as they remain on a roll, 12-1 overall. This fastball paints the outside corner, and it's 1-1. So 1 ball, 1 strike. Top of the second inning. No score between the Legends and Buccaneers. Klom fires. This one misses high and away, and it's 2-1. Here's the pitch from Glom. Fastball swung and fouled back towards the screen. On-deck batter will pick it up as it's now 2-2. The on-deck batter is Josh Hornsby, the left fielder for the Long Beach Legends. As we mentioned, Kevin Glom with a lot of talent in that right arm, that large right arm, that large frame, as this one once again is fouled off the edge of the bat, and it remains 2-2. So Joe Argumendo doing his best to protect the plate and fight off a lot of pitches, rocking a pretty exaggerated open stance is the catcher. Swings at this one and misses, and that'll be strike 3. Play will have to be completed down to first base by Campbell, and it is, as the breaking ball was swung on the dirt. And that'll be the second strikeout of the inning and the third of the game for Kevin Glom. This is what you want to see if you're Charlie Reynoso, the Pirates manager, actually, because Glom is typically on the Pirates, and he's actually here in the dugout of the Buccaneers. I heard that the Bucs were a little bit short on pitching, so that's the reason why Glom is getting the nod here today. And also Glom needed to get some work in himself as his fastball misses low, and it's 1-0 to Josh Hornsby. Hornsby is the left fielder for the Legends. As on deck is Ryan Franklin, the first baseman. Hornsby's the number 8 hitter in the lineup. He bounces this one off the edge of the bat. Charging is the third baseman and shortstop. It was Seminaris originally who I thought was going to make the play, but then Riley kind of tried to cut him off and couldn't glove it. And I think you're going to say that's probably an infield single for the hitter Hornsby. It was hit very slow, kind of in that middle range of the shortstop and the third baseman, which is why Riley actually did try to cut in front of Seminaris and make the play. Here's the number 9 hitter in the lineup, Ryan Franklin, a man on base here in the second inning. Glom checks the runner, fires home, called a strike on the inside corner, and it's 0-1. Long Beach Legends, like the Inland Valley Pirates, as well as the Inland Valley Buccaneers, they have 2 teams. This one is bounced up the middle. 2-hopper over to the second baseman, who fires the easy play over to first for Michael Smith. Smith using 2 hands. You know, you don't see that too often anymore with players. Lots of guys will do casual one-handed grabs and sometimes make errors, but Michael Smith with 2 hands on that catch and then throwing over to first to make that out. And at the end of 1.5 innings of play, it remains scoreless from Cal Poly Pomona between the Bucs and Legends. And welcome back to Scalino's Field. We're on the campus of Cal Poly Pomona, as usual, for the Buccaneers home games, as well as the Pirates, as the first pitch is swung. And this is driven a mile high to deep left center field, way over the head of the left fielder. And that'll land right at the fence, as digging in for 2 in a stand-up double is Jack Spawn. So Spawn with a noisy first pitch there, blasting it to deep left center near that Cal Poly Pomona sign out there. A little bit left of the C. And up comes Campbell. Jack Spawn is one guy that, as we look at the Buccaneers the rest of the season, you really expect to do a lot offensively. Shows a really good stick, as he's now on second base in scoring position for Brendan Campbell. Here's the pitch from Scahill. Off-speed pitch misses. Oh, it's called a strike, and it's 0-1. Brendan Campbell, 5'10", 175 pounds, from Citrus College. As a freshman there, he was an honorable mention all-conference player. Hit 242 in 25 games for them. Here's the pitch. Squaring around and now bringing it back is Campbell as the off-speed pitch missed high and in, and it's 1-1. Manager Kevin Bowler giving out his signs over to Jack Spahn at second base as well as Brendan Campbell at the dish. Campbell once again squaring around and once again bringing it back, but this time it is called a strike, and now it's 1-2. So now he's probably going to have the bunt off. Well, Coach Bowler, as Anthony Seminaris is waiting on deck for the Buccaneers. Here's the pitch from Scahill, overthrown, 58-footer in the dirt, and a good job by the catcher Argumendo to stop that one with his chest protector to make sure that the runner didn't advance another 90 feet into the third base. As we mentioned, a little bit of wind here today. Not normally there's wind here in Pomona, as this one is hit off the edge of the bat, and it will go out over to Scahill. Scahill gloves it and now flips it over to first. There was a little bit of a miscommunication because the first baseman was originally, Franklin, was originally trying to go for the ball, and then he realized he had to get back to the bag. So initially Scahill was going to take a overhand throw and then decided to pause and then underhand flip it over to first base. But he got the out. But the job was done for Brendan Campbell, who basically sacrificed the runner over to third base. All he wanted to do was get the ball on that right side of the infield, and that's exactly what he did, to move the runner up to third, as this pitch is a breaking ball called strike one to Anthony Seminaris. Seminaris, 5'10", 175, from Fullerton College. Here's the pitch from Scahill. The 0-1 is swung and driven towards the left side. Slow roller, and they will make the throw over to first across the diamond. Will Ferreira, the third baseman. And I'm a little surprised that the runner didn't try to score on that one. As I mentioned, it was very slow, but it was hit at the third baseman, and Spahn might have thought that it was coming quicker than it really was. And he did field it cleanly, so he might have been thrown out at the plate. So maybe it was a good decision, as you never want to make an out at home plate. Here's the pitch from Scahill, swung on and missed on an off-speed pitch for Jake Teagle. Way out in front of that pitch was number 16. Jake Teagle, 6'1", 180, right-handed bat. Plays for Chaffey College, as this one is in the dirt, and it's 1-1. Another good stop behind home plate by the catcher, Argumendo. Making sure that ball didn't get to the backstop, especially with a man on third base, is a huge thing, as we heard that happened about 5 times in Game 2 to the Inland Valley Buccaneers, according to the manager, Kevin Bowler, in Game 2, in that game that ended up going 13 innings, as it's 2-1. This pitch was low. So that's tough when you hear about that, when you have a game that goes 13 innings and you had 5 passed balls for runs. If just one of those was stopped, as this one's low and it's 3-1, hitter's pitch to come now to Teagle. If you just stop one of those pitches, you might end up winning in regulation. As we mentioned, it went 13. Here's the pitch. This one just called a strike on the outside corner, and it's now a full count as Teagle took about 1 step towards the first base line and then waited for the call from the home plate umpire, who called it a strike. Scahill comes set in the stretch, leg kick and fires. Fastball low, ball 4. So good at bat there for Teagle, and now there's runners on the corners, 2 outs. Bottom of the second inning here for the Buccaneers. Of course, Jack Spahn led off the inning with a noisy drive to left center field. Made it all the way back to the fence there. And then there were a couple ground ball outs by Brendan Campbell and Anthony Seminaris, and then the walk by Jake Teagle that just happened. First pitch misses low, fastball, and it's 1-0 to Michael Smith, the second baseman. Michael Smith, 5'10", 170 from Memorial High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So another one of the few guys here on this team that doesn't hail from Southern California. Bounces this one up the middle. Charging is the shortstop, Negretti, and he cannot handle it. So in comes a run to score in the form of Jack Spahn, and the Buccaneers lead 1-0 here in the bottom of the second inning. And that was another one of these in-between really hits where it was just hit so slow, and the guy had to make a perfect play to throw it to first that I think you're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and you're going to call that an infield base hit and an RBI for Michael Smith. Here's Mbusi/Wyo, the center fielder, who had the game-winning hit against Team San Diego in Game 1 of that series. It was a triple. Mbusi batting in the 10th spot today. As we mentioned, in those non-league games, of course, you can use an extra hitter, and that's what the Buccaneers have done today. /Wild, the left-handed hitter, swings at this one and launches it to deep center field, tailing away from the center fielder. Now he makes the catch right in front of the A for Cal Poly Pomona, the last A. There are a few A's in Cal Poly Pomona, but he made it right in front of the last A in left center field. And that was about 5 feet away from the fence. And as I mentioned, from a left-handed hitter, it tails away from the center fielder towards the left side, and that's what it was doing. But Harris really did a great job of tracking it and making the grab, and so that'll do it for the second inning. But the damage was done. The Bucs did get one run, and they lead 1-0 as we head to the top of the third. And welcome back as we head to the top of the third inning. 1-0 the score. Bucs on top of the Legends. Dave Silbera on the play-by-play. So glad you joined us here for this non-league game between the Buccaneers and Legends, as this pitch is called strike one. 0-1 to the extra hitter Turner Conrad for the Long Beach Legends squad. Working out of the windup and firing is Glom. This one swung and fell straight back at the screen, and it's 0-2. Kevin Glom needed to get some innings of work, and he's done very well so far in the first 2 innings. Already has 3 strikeouts and has only allowed a couple hits. Here's the pitch from Glom. This one is chopped down the third base line. A 2-hopper over to Riley, fires across the diamond to record the out. And so we've got one away here in the third inning. Here comes the leadoff hitter, Tanner Negretti. Tanner Negretti is 0 for 1 with a strikeout. So one of those aforementioned 3 strikeouts through the first time in the lineup for Glom. It's always interesting to see how a pitcher responds the second time through a lineup, and also how the offense responds. As this one is swung, and this is a really high fly ball to shallow right field, and calling for it is Michael Smith, who makes the grab about 5 feet on the outfield grass, as Anthony Rubito was sprinting in very fast. And Rubito and Smith are having maybe a little funny discourse there, because Rubito's saying, I ran all this way and you call for it? But Smith makes the grab nonetheless, and Rubito will head back out to right field. So there's 2 outs here, top of the third inning. 1-0 to score, Bucs on top. Here's Zach Ferreira. Ferreira 1 for 1 with a single. Swings and misses at this off-speed pitch, and it's 0-1. Kevin Glom, of course, was with the Pirates last season, and Pirates again this season. We mentioned he's on the mound today for Buccaneers because they're a little short on pitching, as this one misses low and it's 1-1. And they decided he also needed some innings of work today, so that's why he gets to start here. Figured for him to go about 4, maybe 5 innings against the Legends. Of course, the Pirates will have a doubleheader tomorrow against East LA, as this fastball misses high and away ball. Both of those games on the doubleheader will be broadcast live on InlandValleyBaseball.com. That'll be the second and third game between East LA and the Pirates. If you recall, back in Game 1, here's the pitch from Glom. Glom was actually a member of that game, and he was part of 17 strikeouts against East LA en route to a 10-0 victory for the Pirates. Here's the pitch from Glom. This one misses inside, and that'll be a ball. So a walk drawn here by Zach Ferreira. So Glom yet to retire. Ferreira on board with a walk here in the third, and also that single back in the first inning as Greg Humbert comes to the plate. Humbert did reach base in the first inning, but it was on a fielder's choice where the force was made by Seminaris throwing it over to Smith. Smith actually tried turning it for 2, but couldn't get it there on time. As this one is swung on and Nice backhanded grab made by Teagle. Teagle ranging 3 steps to his right and making a nice pick. And he steps on the bag for the 3 unassisted put-out. And at the end of 2.5 innings, the Buccaneers retain that 1-0 lead. You're listening on InlandValleyBaseball.com. And welcome back as we head to the bottom of the 3rd inning. 1-0 the score. Bucs on top of the Legends as Miles Ryan comes up to the plate, looking to lead things off just like he did in the first, where he had a single. So he is 1 for 1 here today. Of course, he was actually thrown out at second base on a 6-4-3 double play by Kevin Riley, as this one is swung on and missed, and it's 0-1. Way out in front of the off-speed pitch is Miles Ryan. As we mentioned, Riley on deck, and in the hole will be Bryce Brooks. So the top of the lineup, 1-2-3 here in the 3rd inning. Bucs would love to take advantage of that here, as this breaking ball misses low in the dirt, and Ryan holds up. As we mentioned, there is a little bit of a breeze here today, and if you look out in the left field trees, they look like they are moving right to left. Here's the pitch from Scahill, as this one misses low for a ball. That'll be ball 2 here to Ryan, 2-1 the count. With Riley on deck, it's funny, you always see Kevin Bowler down that third base line. Looks like he has a good time with the opposing third baseman. He's in a little dialogue with third baseman right now, Ferreira, for the Legends. Here's the 2-1 offering from Scahill. This one in at the knees, called strike 2, and it's 2-2. 2 balls, 2 strikes, no outs. Bottom of the 3rd inning. Bucs and Legends doing battle. 1-0 the score. Bucs on top. Bucs looking for their 3rd victory of the season, as this one is swung on and foul, tipped back towards home plate. And we'll do it again. Another 2-2 to come. So this will be the 6th pitch of the at-bat here for the leadoff hitter, Miles Ryan, as the on-deck batter, of course, Riley, picking up the loose ball, tossing it back into his first base dugout. Here's the pitch. This one is bounced foul, so we'll do it again. Another 2-2 to come. Foul towards the third base dugout. So the Legends will pick that up out there in the third base dugout, and they'll keep it. 7th pitch to come. Scahill, the right-handed pitcher, working from the left side of the rubber, fires the 2-2 again. This one is swung on and missed, and it pops out of the glove of the catcher, so he's going to have to fire down to first, and they record that strikeout as Argumendo makes the nice throw down to Franklin. That'll be the first out here in the 3rd inning, as Ryan goes down swinging. Here comes Riley. So Riley is 0 for 1 with that ground out into a double play back in the 1st inning. Riley's another guy who you figure that is going to be huge for the Buccaneers should they get into that SCCBL league battle. This one swung on, lined over towards the shortstop. Shortstop tries to make a backhanded grab. Can't make the play over to first. Ball came loose at first on a ball that was well struck, but a play that shortstop kind of did a little ole on. I mean, he looked like he had enough time to try to get in front of it, try to make a normal standard catch, but he tried to backhand it, and I think you're going to give him an error on that play. So Kevin Riley reaches there on an error. As Bryce Brooks comes to the plate, Bryce Brooks had a single off the right leg of Danny Scahill. This one swung on to right center field, covering a lot of ground, and making the catch out in right field is Schwartz, who fires into second, as tagging back up to first is Riley. Riley was about halfway in between first and second on the play. So Bryce Brooks swinging at first pitch both times and connecting both times. One of them coming up with a hit and one with a fly out to right field as Anthony Rabito steps up to the plate. Rabito 0 for 1 with a ground out. Runner is off with the pitch. This will be chopped over towards the shortstop. Two-hopper to Negretti. Negretti fires across the diamond for the final out of the inning. And at the end of 3 full innings of play, it is now 1-0, Bucs on top of the Legends. You're listening on InlandValleyBaseball.com. And welcome back as we head to the top of the 4th inning. 1-0 the score, Bucs on top of the Legends. Kevin Glom remains on the mound for the Buccaneers. First pitch swung on, lined over towards the shortstop, Anthony Seminares. and he'll fire over to Teagle for the first out of the inning. So 1 pitch, 1 out here in the top of the 4th. As a lot of balls have been hit over towards the shortstop Seminaris in this game. Seminaris recording 2 outs in the 1st inning. And now here's 1 here in the 4th inning. So busy day over there for Seminaris as Michael Agramente comes to the plate, 0 for 1. Ground out to the aforementioned Seminaris at shortstop. This one's called a strike and it's 0-1. And now it feels like the wind has completely stopped here in Pomona, which is normal for an Inland Valley game, as this one is swung on and fouled out of play down the first base line, 0-2 the count. Kevin Glom showing good command here today as he gets ahead 0-2 on Agramente. Working out of the windup. Here's the pitch from the right-handed hurler. Big breaking ball that broke a little bit too hard and missed low, and it's 1-2. That's a pitch you want to see on an 0-2 pitch. You want to see something that's might be able to catch the hitter fishing, as this one is a breaking ball in the dirt, and it's 2-2. Of course, they always say you want that 0-2 pitch to be about 12 to 18 inches off the plate, so that the hitter really has no chance of hitting it. This one's swung on and it's driven to right field. Will it land fair? Yes, it does. So that'll be a base hit for the Legends and Michael Agramente. So the Legends have the first man on board here in the 4th inning. Here comes Jake Harris. Jake Harris 0 for 1 with a strikeout for the Legends, as Glom will work out of the stretch. Agramente takes his lead off. First a slender one at that, as this one's a breaking ball in at the knees, called for a strike, and it's 0-1 for Glom. It's interesting to see kind of how, obviously, this is the first time Campbell and Glom have worked together. There's been absolutely no problem so far. Here's the pitch, and this is another breaking ball in at the knees, called strike 2. 0-2 the count. It's worth mentioning, of course, that Glom is from Loyola Marymount. Very, very good baseball conference, West Coast Conference. Here's the pitch. This one's swung on and missed, fastball high and in, and that is strike 3. So that's exactly what you want to see. That was really basically a professional job of pitching. You throw the breaking ball low and away 2 times, and then you come with the high heat inside to really just set up the hitter for failure. In fact, you know when you're a hitter and you see those nasty breaking pitches, the first 2 that are called strikes, you see a fastball and your eyes get huge. You want to kind of just jump on it, even if it is out of the zone, and that's what you're supposed to do if you're a good pitcher. The runner's off, and now firing down to second and making the pickoff is Glom. The runner left super early, as Glom had just come set in the stretch and steps off the mound and fires over to Michael Smith to record that out. So that was very interesting to see him leave that early. Maybe they thought they could catch Glom napping, but Glom is a very aware person, and as we mentioned, very good in the classroom as well. He's got a high baseball IQ, so you're not going to see, too many times where he will just kind of lose a base runner on base. And obviously he didn't do it right there, and that's why the guy was caught stealing by Michael Smith, and that was the final out of the inning. So at the end of 3.5 innings, the Bucs cling to that 1-0 lead. They hope to get some more in the bottom of the 4th. To the bottom of 4 we go, 1-0 the score. Bucs on top of the Legends. So glad you could join us on InlandValleyBaseball.com. Dave Silveri on the play-by-play, as the first pitch misses low for ball 1 to Jack Spahn. Spahn, 1 for 1 with a double and a run scored back in the 2nd inning. He was the one that led off that inning. Here's the pitch from Scahill, who remains on the bump for the Legends. This fastball is in at the knees and on the outside corner, called a strike. 1-1 the count to Spahn. Spahn 6'2", 195, right-handed bat from Point Loma Nazarene. Here's the pitch, and this one was nowhere near the zone, way overthrown and way outside as well. and it'll be 2-1. Spawn, a regular for Point Loma Nazarene this past year, played in 24 games. Also played in 27 games his freshman year, as this one misses high and in, and it's 3-1. So good job right there by Spawn to hold up and show a very good knowledge of the strike zone. As Campbell is on deck, here's the pitch. This one's swung, and this is a towering fly ball to deep center field. And going way back and now making a few steps in out there is Harris for the first out of the inning. So down goes Spawn for the first time. He'll fall to 1-2 on the day as Brendan Campbell comes to the plate. He grounded out to the pitcher on that kind of weird play, if you remember, where the pitcher caught it and then tried throwing it overhand to the first baseman Franklin, who wasn't there yet. So then he moved a little bit closer to the bag and flipped it underhand to him. As this is called a strike to Brendan Campbell, and it's 0-1. Of course, that was like an unofficial sacrifice bunt because it did advance Spawn 90 feet in the third base, as this one is fouled off the edge of the bat towards the third base side, and that'll be 0-2 to Campbell. So that was how Spawn actually ended up getting the third, and then Michael Smith hitting him in with an RBI single. Slow roller in between the shortstop and third baseman that they couldn't handle. Would have been a perfect play if they could have picked it up and thrown it over to first base, as this is called strike 3. That'll be the second out here of the inning. Bucs still up 1-0 on the Legends. It is the bottom of the fourth from Cal Poly Pomona. This is the first of 2 against the Long Beach Legends. Play the Legends again later in Long Beach, as the Buccaneers will play those 2 games. Here's the pitch from Scahill. This one's swung and driven straight back up the middle, right from where it came from by Seminaris. So that'll be a base hit here in the 4th inning. And what I was trying to say is the Pirates will also take on these Legends twice this season. I believe the Pirates will take the Legends on this coming Sunday, I want to say. It's coming up pretty soon, I believe. Maybe it's, yeah, I believe it's this Sunday. Here comes Jake Teagle. No official at bat. He walked in his first plate appearance, swings at this one, and fouls it down the first base line and over towards right field. See, Rudy Cesares is going to run down that right field line and pick up that baseball. As Michael Smith is on deck, we mentioned Michael Smith, the RBI knock in the 2nd inning to give the Bucs the 1-0 lead. Bucs hoping to get a 2-out rally here in the 4th inning. This one is swung on. A little chopper over towards the third baseman, who fires across the diamond to record the out. Ferreira covering a lot of ground on the slow chopper, catching it, basically picking it off in front of Negretti, the shortstop, and firing sidearm over to first and making a nice play to end this 4th inning. And at the end of 4, it's still 1-0, Bucs on top. You're listening on InlandValleyBaseball.com. And welcome back to Cal Poly Pomona. 1-0 score. Kevin Glom remains on the mound. First pitch swung on and hit over to Bryce Brooks, the third baseman at the hot corner. Fires across the diamond for the first out. So just like that, 1 pitch, 1 out here by Hornsby in the 5th inning. Top of the 5th to be exact. 1-0 remains the score, as Kevin Glom remains on the bump. So Kevin Glom, as we mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, was figuring to go about 4 or 5 innings today to get some work, kind of start extending his right arm out, going a little bit deeper in games, as this is a big breaking ball, 12-6 variety, that just misses low for ball 1 to Ryan Franklin. Franklin is 0 for 1 with a ground out over towards the second baseman, Michael Smith. Here's the pitch, swung on and missed, and it's 1-1. Well, Bryce Brooks took over at third base here in this inning. Before that, it was Kevin Riley. As this one swung on and missed, then it's 1-2. We're at the number 9 spot in the lineup for the Legends, if you're wondering. So they will have one more batter, the number 10 batter, and then the top of their lineup. Here's the pitch from Glom, swung on and missed, strike 3. So Kevin Glom cruising through 4 2/3 innings pitched here with the Buccaneers. That was his 5th strikeout. So 1 strikeout an inning on average so far. That is very good. And obviously the no runs, that is the biggest thing, the goose egg on the scoreboard. Here comes Turner Conrad. He grounded out over towards the third baseman. Back in his only at-bat as this breaking ball misses low in the dirt. And it's 1-0. That ground ball out was in the third inning. Legends hoping for a 2-out rally here in the fifth as this one misses low and it's 2-0. Because, you know, if Turner Conrad can get on base, that's back to the top of the lineup, and Tanner Negretti and then Zach Ferreira, Greg Humbert. They have a lot of good players due to the Long Beach Legends. Here's the pitch from Glom, and this fastball misses away for a ball. Say it's a pretty good crowd actually out here today at the ballpark. Fair amount of fans here today and parents. As Kevin Glom deals. Fastball on the outside corner called strike. Well, very, very strong outing for the big right-handed pitcher from Loyola Marymount as this one misses high for a ball. That'll be a walk for Turner Conrad. And so like we were just saying, you know, if you're the number 10 hitter in this situation, if you can just kind of turn the lineup over to the top and find a way to get on base any way possible, like Conrad just did right there, then you get to the top of the order, and then who knows what's going to happen. Of course, if you remember, the one loss to the Heat, they did split those 2 games, but in Game 1, the game that the Buccaneers lost, there were 5 runs that were scored in the same inning as this fastball misses. It's actually in there for a strike in its own one. And those 5 runs were all scored after 2 outs, and they were all scored after an error, so they were all unearned. And the final score of that game was 5-4. This breaking ball is in the dirt. The runner, Turner Conrad, will head over to second base on the wild pitch. Good job by Conrad to diagnose that ball immediately in the dirt, head over to second base, because Campbell actually blocked it. Didn't get to the backstop. It stayed out in front of him, but he did just that. He just blocked it and didn't pick it. So good job right there by Conrad as this one is swung on and missed for a strike here. Legends, of course, on that wild pitch, moving up into second base, so they do have a man in scoring position as it's 1-2 here for Kevin Glom. That might be the first man that's reached scoring position for the Legends. Yes, it is. It's the first time a runner's even been on second here in the 5th inning for the Legends. This one swung on and fouled behind the backstop over into the adjacent parking lot. Of course, right behind home plate towards the first base side is a student parking lot, which is pretty much empty now as the students, I guess, have gone home for their summers, as it appears that they have graduated recently, because this lot was completely full last week. I know the Cal Poly Pomona is on the quarter system, so that's why they're graduating so late. Well, I'm taking a long look at second, now coming home, and misses with the breaking ball low and away. Nobody was covering the runner over there at second. That, of course, is Turner Conrad. So it was interesting to see Glom really taking a long look at him, and he checked back 2 or 3 times. Glom comes set, fires, fastball misses in the dirt, and once again, on another wild pitch, the runner will advance 90 feet, and this time, now he's at third base, is Conrad, as it's now a full count. Campbell will come to the mound for a conference. Also coming to the mound is the pitching coach, Kevin Smith, for the Buccaneers, as he will kind of try to hustle out there to the mound. It's interesting to see maybe what they're going to do here with the full count pitch, because you do have first and second base open, so you don't necessarily have to throw, you know, like a meaty fastball here. You could go with a breaking pitch and hope that he kind of tries to swing at something out of the zone, or just swing at something that's not very hittable, and then try to take your chances with the number 2 hitter in the lineup, Zach Ferreira. But if you want to take your chances with Ferreira, might not be a good idea. He's reached base both times in his previous 2 plate appearances. Here's the pitch from Glom. Swung on, One chopper over to Bryce Brooks, who fields cleanly and fires across the diamond for the out. So the mini jam, I guess you could say, is averted, as with 2 outs, Conrad walked and then reached second on a wild pitch, third on a wild pitch, and was 90 feet away from tying it up. Bryce Brooks, as we mentioned earlier in this game, with those sure hands at the hot corner, garnering a Golden Glove at the junior collegiate level, and he just showed why right there. So we are midway through this game. It remains 1-0. Buccaneers on top of the Legends. And welcome back as we head to the bottom of the 5th inning. Dave Silvera on the play-by-play. So glad you joined us on InlandValleyBaseball.com for this matchup between the Buccaneers and Legend. First pitch is in at the knees, called strike 1, and it's 0-1 to Michael Smith. Michael Smith, the reason behind the 1-run scoring in this game. He had the RBI single back in the 2nd inning that scored Jack Spahn. This one is swung, and this one is lifted into left field past the diving glove of the third baseman, Ferreira. So Smith on board again with another base hit, and this time he's leading off the inning with a hit. And then we talk about it, but anytime you lead off the inning with a runner getting on base, the numbers just go up astronomically in terms of being able to score a run. Let's see if that holds true here for the Buccaneers, and they can maybe extend this lead out even further from that 1-0 score. Here comes Mbusi/Wyo. Wyo flying out to his counterpart in center field in his first at-bat, this time squaring around and hits a fly ball bunt. And making a nice diving attempt was the catcher, Argumendo. Was about a third of the way down the first base line, laying out for a full extension, but it hit off the edge of his glove, and he just couldn't glove it. And so it's 0-1 here to /Wyo. So a little bit of a worst-case scenario averted there, as the Buccaneers were basically trying to just sacrifice the runner over in the scoring position. /Wyo got underneath it. He squares around again. This time he lays it down the first base line. Will it stay fair? If that stays fair, that's a hit, but it just rolls foul, and it's 0-2. That took a long time to roll foul, but the catcher and pitcher, Scahill and Argumendo, alertly waited to the last possible second to let that thing roll foul, and now it's 0-2. So now, obviously, you're going to have to protect the plate, and the bunt most likely will be off. /Wyo is a leadoff type of hitter, so maybe if Kevin Bowler really thinks he can get the bunt down, maybe he'll keep the sign on. The third baseman is still on the infield grass for the Legends. Here's the pitch. Called strike 3 in at the knees, and that's it for /Wyo. 3 pitches and 3 strikes as he heads back to the dugout dejected. And here comes Escobar. Escobar comes in for his first at-bat of the day, replacing Miles Ryan. Charles Escobar, 5'10", 185. Getting ready for his first cuts as Scahill comes set in the stretch. Holding on the runner at first is Franklin, and he will get a throw over from Scahill. Getting dirty was Michael Smith. Not very close to actually picking him off, though. But obviously that's the fundamental thing to do, to dive back in head first. As time is called for by Argumendo, the catcher, who will have a little conference and chat out there at the mound with his pitcher, Scahill. Escobar, as we mentioned, just coming in here in this inning, replacing Miles Ryan. Ryan was 1 for 2, singled in the first and struck out in the third. Charles Escobar had a very good game in that 3-2 victory over the Heat. Had 2 RBIs in that game. So he hit in 2 of the 3 runs. The other guy who had a good game, who actually had the game-winning hit, is on first base right now, as this one misses outside for a ball. That's Michael Smith, who had that game-winning RBI in the 6th inning to break a 2-2 tie and give the Bucs their first win of the season last week. On deck is Ramirez. Here's the pitch, and this one misses outside for a ball. So that means we will have another substitution. Gerardo Ramirez will be coming in for Kevin Riley. And that's something you typically see out in the summer collegiate leagues. Normally in the 5th or 6th inning you start seeing a lot of changes, so we'll try to get you all those as soon as we notice them. As this one is swung and fouled straight back at the screen by Charles Escobar. Escobar from San Bernardino Valley College. Also went to Rialto High School, where he was an all-Valley selection and hit .462 with a .527 on-base percentage his senior season. The runner, Smith, is off with the pitch. It misses low. Throw down to second is not in time. In fact, it actually got over the glove of the shortstop and in towards shallow center field. So that'll be a stolen base for Michael Smith, as he's now in scoring position. They couldn't lay down the sacrifice bunt, but he takes matters into his own hands with his legs and gets into the scoring position himself. I'd like to see the Bucs being a little bit aggressive on the base pass today, stealing a couple bases. They haven't had that many stolen bags on the season, as this is a breaking pitch that's called a strike at the knees. It gets by the catcher, and now heading into third is Michael Smith on the pass ball. So Michael Smith taking advantage of that pitch, just getting maybe a couple feet away from the catcher to his right, as the pitch was a very, very slow off-speed pitch, and maybe he crossed up his catcher because he is now having a conference with Scahill at the bottom of the mound. Now heads back to the batter's box, does Argumendo. As we mentioned, on deck is Gerardo Ramirez, who will be coming in for his first at-bat. First base coach is actually Bryce Brooks, who was playing third base in the last inning. Started number 3 in the lineup. Here's the pitch from Scahill. This one's swung on, and this one is driven to right field and foul. Very good job of protecting the plate by Escobar. He went way down after that and lined it out there in the right field. Scahill didn't like the ball, so he threw it into his catcher, and the home plate umpire will keep that ball. Actually, I think they threw in the ball from right field, so he had 2. Now he comes set. Here's the pitch. Fastball called, strike 3 on the outside corner. Charles Escobar won't really like that because he had a pretty good at-bat going deep into the count. And here comes the aforementioned Gerardo Ramirez, who is replacing Kevin Riley. Riley was 0 for 2 on the day, did reach on an error. And we'll have another replacement in Luke Asperger, as this one is fouled out of play behind the backstop and it's 0-1 to Ramirez. Of course, Kevin Bowler, very familiar with Gerardo. He plays for Diamond Bar High School, where Coach Bowler is a coach. Ramirez really doing great things at Diamond Bar High School. Stats that he put up were pretty silly, as this one misses low and it's 1-1. We talk about his stats being silly. It wasn't just hitting, but it was also pitching as well. But he did have a .364 batting average for Diamond Bar High School. He was also 9 and 2 pitching-wise, as this breaking ball misses low and away and actually gets by the catcher, but not far enough for Michael Smith to come home and score. As I was saying, he's also 9 and 2 as a pitcher, 64 strikeouts in 65 innings, so averaging basically a strikeout per inning. Anytime you can do that, that's pretty impressive at any level. Of course, Michael Smith still on third base, I should say. He had the single, then he stole second, then he reached third on a pass ball. Here's the pitch from Scahill. Fastball swung on and chopped foul down the third base line. So that'll be the second strike of the at-bat for Ramirez, who takes a practice cut out of the batter's box with just his left hand. And it's 2-2. This will be the first time we've gotten to see Luke Asperger, who's on deck here at Cal Poly Pomona. I believe he did make the trip down to San Diego for the weekend. Here's the pitch, fastball in the dirt, and it's 3-2. So a full count here, as Kevin Bowler was trying to confirm with the umpire that it was a full count. And now he shows 3 on his left hand and 2 on his right. Scahill shakes off the catcher for pretty much the first time. I believe that's the first time I've seen anybody shake off a catcher's signs today. Scahill fires a fastball low for ball 4. So Ramirez drawing the walk. And now there's runners on the corners here in the bottom of the 5th inning for the Inland Valley Buccaneers. Bottom of the 5th, 2 outs, runners on the corners. 1-0 the score. Inland Valley on top of Long Beach. Here comes Luke Asperger. Asperger from Stanford University. 6'0", 190 pounds. Hometown Pasadena. Played for Pauley High School. This one misses high and in. A little chin music from Scahill, and it's 1-0. He was a first-team All-CIF selection, 2-time All-League selection, and also an All-San Gabriel Valley selection with Pauley, as this one misses low, and it's 2-0 to Asperger. Senior year, he hit .443 and led the CIF Southern section with 9 home runs, and also won a CIF championship. So that's a pretty successful senior season, to say the very least. On deck is Johnny Juarez. So another replacement to come as this one misses high and in, and that is ball 3. So really nothing even near the zone for Asperger as he's now ahead 3-0. Johnny Juarez comes in. That will be the 3rd consecutive replacement here, or pinch hitter, for the Buccaneers. Fastball right down Broadway, called strike 1. He was taking all the way was Luke, and it's 3-1. As we mentioned, there's a good amount of people here today. Good atmosphere. People are clapping. People are excited about baseball here in the summer collegiate leagues. Scahill comes set, working out of the stretch, checks the runner at first, fires home, swung on and fouled straight back at the screen, and actually gets stuck in the screen directly over my head, about maybe 6 feet over my head if I'm standing on the table. Probably 10 feet up in the air altogether. Here's the pitch. The runner from first is off and is called strike 3 in at the knees. And Asperger didn't really like that, and then neither did the fans here at Cal Poly Pomona, who let out a sigh, as that'll be the final out. So Scahill has a long 5th inning, but ends up striking out the side and getting out of the jam unscathed here. We'll head to the top of the 6th. The score remains 1-0, Bucs on top. And welcome back to Scalino's Field on the campus of Cal Poly Pomona. First pitch misses low for ball 1, and it's 1-0. Kevin Glom remains on the mound. He has been absolutely electric so far. No runs allowed. 5 strikeouts in those 5 innings, as this one is swung on and missed, and it's 1-1. Well, that is Tanner Negretti up at the plate because he's wearing number 2. I have him grounding out in the last inning as this one misses low for a ball, and it's 2-1. I am fairly certain he did ground out to end the last inning, as we have time called for by the home plate umpire, who's now traveling down the first base line. Time was called for at the plate. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think maybe the home plate umpire is walking off a pitch that might have hit him in not the best of areas. Here's the pitch from Glom. This one misses high and in for a ball. It'll be interesting to see how long Kevin Glom can go here today. He's been very economical, very efficient. Not too many runners even reaching base. In fact, in the last inning, that was the first time the Legends even got somebody on second, as this is called a strike on the outside corner, and we now have a full count, payoff pitch to come here for Glom and Negretti. Right-handed hitter against the right-handed pitcher. Luke Asperger is now in at third base, as this one is swung and fouled straight back at the screen. So we'll do it again. Another payoff pitch to come in the 7th pitch of this at-bat between the leadoff hitter and the starting pitcher, Glom. So Asperger comes in here in the 6th inning over there at third base. This one's swung, and this is driven a mile high in foul territory, but it is playable for Asperger, who we just mentioned just came in. And he did a little bit of a leaping catch there, but he puts it away for the first out here in the inning. Give you some other changes as we see them. Cesares is in at shortstop there for Seminaris. Can't see if there's somebody new at second, but at first Michael Ortega is now in for Teagle. This pitch is swung and fouled out of play behind home plate, and it's 0-1 to Zach Ferreira. Zach Ferreira, 1 for 1, singled in the first and walked back in the third inning. So yet to be retired by Glom. You know he'd like to get him out here as this one misses low. It's a fastball and it's 1-1. Yeah, Michael Smith still is in at second base for sure. Campbell is still behind the dish. We mentioned Johnny Juarez was on deck in that last inning but never got up to the plate as this breaking ball misses low for ball 2 and it's 2-1. So you'd imagine that Campbell will finish this inning out behind home plate, and then Johnny Juarez will come in and pinch hit for him and then replace him behind the dish the rest of the game. Here's the pitch from Glom. Fastball high and away. So all of a sudden, Glom losing a little bit of control here in the 6th inning. As we mentioned, just getting extended for the first time really all season long. That was the whole point of today. Just kind of see what he has to offer. As this one is bounced foul down the first base line over towards Ortega. That's something that you look at this summer and you see that a lot of the guys were going 3 innings and 2 innings at the beginning of the summer. Now you start extending to 5, 6 innings, and then maybe a week or so you start working. You start getting your 7 innings in. As this one swung on, and this is launched to deep right field, a high fly ball, but now charging in on it is the right fielder who can't make a diving grab, firing into second base and running into second base with a stand-up double would be Zach Ferreira. As initially off the bat, it looked like it was going to be driven and hit very far to right field, and the right fielder out there thought the same thing, which is why he headed backwards and misjudged it, and all of a sudden he had to sprint in at the last second to try to make a diving backhanded grab, but couldn't do it. That is no longer Rabito out there in right field, but I cannot see who exactly it was. It also looks like there's somebody new in center field, but once again, we can't make out exactly who they are because they're very far away as this one misses high for a ball to Greg Humbert. Humbert 0 for 2, couple ground outs. Did reach back in the first inning on a fielder's choice, though. This one misses high and in, and it's 2-0, so all of a sudden Glom's starting to lose a little bit of his control here in the 6th inning as Campbell calls for time and kind of just trying to straighten and maybe clear Glom's head as Glom gives him a little pat on the back and approves of whatever words of advice Campbell just gave him. 2-0 the count, 1 out, top of the 6th inning, 1-0 the score. Bucs on top of the Legends. Legends wearing their gray shirts today. We've been accustomed to seeing them wear blue, but they're wearing gray today as this one misses inside and it's 3-0. So Glom falls behind 3-0 now. It was pretty smooth sailing up until this point for Glom, who had only had one runner even in scoring position the entire game before this inning. He takes a long look at second. Now scoring around is the hitter, but it's called a strike, and it's 3-1. Maybe he was just trying to get in the head of Glom and try to generate a 4th ball. But Glom didn't bite and fired a strike, and now it's 3-1. See if Glom can work his way back in this count. He fires, and this one misses low for ball 4. So that'll be a 5-pitch walk drawn there by Greg Humbert. And Humbert will now head to first base. As we mentioned, Zach Ferreira is on second base, who had the double out into right field. And here comes the cleanup hitter, Baron Schwartz. Shorts 0 for 1, grounded out to the shortstop in the 4th inning and walked back in the 1st inning. Looking to take advantage of 2 runners on base here as his team trails by 1 run. Big moments right here for Kevin Glom. And the Bucs, as this one is swung on and missed way out in front of it on the off-speed pitch was Schwartz. Legends a very good team. 11-3-1 heading into this game. Here's the pitch from Glom, and this one just misses high. It was a hanging breaking ball that didn't break enough. Glom peering in at his catcher's signs, and he likes what he sees. Now he's also going to look at second. Nobody covering the runner over there on. Fires home. This one swung, cracked bat over towards the shortstop, Saris. Saris flips it to second for the force out, and that'll be the second out of the inning. It was hit too slow for them to try to complete the double play. But they did get that force out at second. Ferreira is now at third, though. He advanced 90 feet in the third on the ground ball as Baron Schwartz reached on that fielder's choice. 6-4 on the fielder's choice if you're recording the score. Glom comes set out of the stretch. This one misses high and in, and it's 1-0 to Michael Agramente, the designated hitter. 1 for 2 on the day, singled in the 4th, and grounded out back in the 1st inning. Here's the 1-0 offering. This one is swung off the edge of the bat over to the third baseman, Asperger. Asperger fires, and it pulls the first baseman off a little bit. Does it pull off Ortega? And Ortega applies the tag right in front of the bag, about a foot in front of the bag. So that'll be the final out of the inning. So a little bit of a threat and a little bit of a maybe mini jam again for the Buccaneers. But once again, answering the bell is Kevin Glom. And Glom has now gone 6 innings and has not allowed a run here for the Buccaneers as we head to the bottom of the 6th in a 1-0 game. And welcome back to Cal Poly Pomona, home of the 3-time Division II national champions. They won it in 76, 80, and 83 under Coach Scolinos as the first pitch is knocked up the middle by Johnny Juarez. Ranging in towards the middle and the second base is the shortstop Negretti, who will throw him out here for the first out. So 1 pitch, 1 out here in the inning. We've seen a lot of that in this game. But to finish that story, and I believe I did finish the story, but this is named Scolinos Field after Coach Scolinos, who led Cal Poly Pomona to those 3 Division II national championships back in the 70s and 80s. Here comes Tanner Thibodeau for his first at-bat. He is coming in for Jack Spahn as this one misses, and it's 1-0. Spahn was 1 for 2. Scored the only run of the game. Thibodeau from Omaha, Nebraska. This one misses low for ball. It's a guy who came out here to rehab his arm. Here's the pitch from Scahill. High and away for a ball. It's now 3-0 to number 3-0 for the Inland Valley Buccaneers, Thibodeau. Here's the pitch. This one misses inside, so a 4-pitch walk drawn by Thibodeau. And he will head down to first base with a free pass as up comes Campbell. So Campbell remains in the game. Previous 5 players were all subbed in for. Campbell is 0 for 2, ground out to the pitcher, and a strikeout back in the 4th. On deck will be Cesares as this one is in there for a called strike on the inside corner. So Cesares will replace Seminaris in the lineup when he takes his first cuts of the day. Here's the pitch from Scahill. This one misses high, and it's 1-1 to Campbell. It's been a pitcher's duel, 1-0 the score. The lone run scored in the 2nd inning after Jack Spahn doubled. then reached over towards third base on a ground out, as this one misses outside for ball 2, and it's 2-1. Ground out by Brendan Campbell, who's actually at the plate right now. He moved him over, and it was almost like an unofficial sacrifice because he hit a ground ball to the right side and advanced the runner into third. And then he scored on Michael Smith's RBI. The runner's off with the pitch. There's a hit and run. Bouncer back to the pitcher Scahill, and he catches the comebacker and throws over to first for the out, as Thibodeau is now at second base, and that was the second out of the inning. So the second time today, Brendan Campbell grounds out to the pitcher, Scahill. Scahill, as well as Glom, turning out really good outings today. Glom, of course, 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, no runs. Scahill, 5 2/3 innings, 1 run, as this is a nice breaking ball in there at the knees for called strike. And it's 0-1 to Rudy Cesares, who comes in for Seminaris. Seminaris, you can close the book on him. He was 1 for 2 today, grounded out to the third baseman, and also had a single up the middle. Cesares, 5'10", 185, from Cal State San Bernardino, where he'll be a redshirt freshman next season. Ortega is on deck. Here's the 0-1, swung and fouled straight back at the screen, and it's 0-2 to Cesares. Cesares is a kinesiology major, which you see a lot of these guys, both on the Pirates and the Buccaneers, doing. A lot of guys, after they're finished playing baseball, want to kind of try to stay involved with the game any way they can. Kinesiology is the type of field that you could do so. If you become a doctor for a team, as this one is swung and fouled out of play behind the backstop. So to remain 0-2 to Cesares. Also, a lot of these guys are just, into nutrition and into just being athletic. So that's another reason why a lot of them go into that field of kinesiology. I know Rudy Cesares in particular is a very active guy. Here's the pitch from Scahill. This one is swung, and this is going to be foul but playable for the third baseman Ferreira, who makes the grab for the final out of the inning. If you remember going back a few games ago, the opposing team against the Bucs was having a lot of problems making that grab in foul territory against down that third base line, but no problems there for Ferreira as he puts it away for the final out here in the 6th inning. And at the end of 6 innings, it remains a 1-0 score. Bucs on top of the Legends. And welcome back to Cal Poly Pomona. Dave Sobera on the play-by-play. So glad you've joined us on InlandValleyBaseball.com for what has been a pitcher's duel here between the Long Beach Legends and the Inland Valley Buccaneers. The Bucs on top 1-0 as we head to the top of the 7th. And we have our first pitching change of the game here in the 7th. Fastball is swung on and chopped up the middle by Jake Harris. Firing sidearm over to first and making the play is Cesares for the first out here in the inning. So 6-3 on that put out right there. The new pitcher is Jacob Cage, 6'2", 210 from Azusa Pacific. Majors in communications with them. He'll be a redshirt junior for them next year. Here comes Joe Argumendo. He is 0 for 2. As this one is high and in for ball 1. 1-0 the count to Argumendo. You see it, and then you see so many of these guys. He went to Glendora High School, and he was a first-team All-CIF selection. You see so many guys on the Pirates as well as the Buccaneers that were just at the top of the game in high school, as this one misses low. And, of course, also getting the job done as well in the collegiate level. This one is swung, driven to the right side. Michael Ortega goes down to a knee and throws over to the pitcher fielding over there at first. So 3-1 there, and that's 2 up, 2 down here for Jacob Cage in his first outing of the summer. Jacob Cage has really a ridiculous strikeout to walk ratio his sophomore season at Azusa Pacific, where he had 71 strikeouts to 17 walks. So very impressive numbers with them. As we have a little bit of a delay here with 2 outs in the top of the 7th inning. 1-0 remains the score. Bucs on top of the Legends. Bucs hoping to get their first non-league win. Of course, the league ones are really the ones that you care more about, but they are actually 0-4 out of league and 2-4 in league, as this one's painting the outside corner for called strike one, and it's 0-1. We talk about the 0-4 non-league, but of those four, three of them are actually the Pirates, which is a league team, as this one's swung on, and this one is driven up the middle over towards the second baseman, who fires to first for the final out. That is Smith. So it's time to stretch here at Scalinos Field. 1-0 the score. It still is a pitcher's duel with the Bucs on top. Well, welcome back to the bottom of 7 we go. 1-0 the score, Bucs on top of the Legends. We had a little bit of a lengthy stretch for you, only because the Legends are sending out a new pitcher. This is a right-handed pitcher in Michael Estrella from Long Beach City College. You see a lot of the guys on this specific Legends team from Long Beach City College. That's where they're based. Of course, that's pretty much where they start their career, and then some of them obviously then go to a 4-year college. But a lot of players on this team are sophomores looking to get maybe signed by somebody for the upcoming season. Here's the first pitch from Estrella as he pulls a string, and it's 0-1 to Michael Ortega. Ortega coming up for his first at-bat of the game, 6'0", 185 right-handed bat from College of Southern Idaho, where he'll be a sophomore next season. This one is a little number foul down the first base line by Michael. Michael in 36 games hit .211, had a .325 on base percentage as a freshman with College of Southern Idaho. Hometown is nearby Walnut. Late kick, and here's the pitch from Estrella, and this one misses upstairs for a ball. Michael Smith will bat next, so he will remain in. One of two guys who started the game that remains in at this moment, as this one misses low for ball 2, and it's 2-2. Breaking pitch. Tega really has a nice looking frame. You see his batting stance. He really looks like he can wreck a baseball, does this right-handed hitter. He bounces this one, though, over towards the shortstop, Negretti, and Negretti fires, and the first baseman's foot was off the bag. Ortega beats it out. So the first baseman trying to tiptoe the bag down there, but couldn't do it, as the manager for the Legends, Chris Vopanik, he got out there really quickly to talk to the second base umpire, and I guess he likes what he's heard now, or at least he can handle what he's heard now, as he felt like maybe the foot was actually on the bag. But this is a big moment for the Bucs here in the bottom of the 7th. They only lead 1-0, even though they've been leading since the second inning, which is pretty much the entire game. It's just that one-run lead, and you would love to add an insurance run here in the 7th if you could. Get your leadoff man on base, as now you try to square around and lay down a bunt with Smith, as the pitch was low for ball, and it's 1-0. Smith alertly bringing his bat back, trying not to bunt something out of the zone. That's always the first step when you're asked to sacrifice bunt. Make sure you bunt a strike. On deck, it looks like, is Diego Cortez, as this will be a pickoff throw over to first. And Busi/Wyo is the first base coach. We'll maybe mention that, as some of the players are doing the first base coaching here today for the Buccaneers, and Kevin Bowler. Another pickoff attempt, and that was a really quick pickoff move over there by Michael Estrella. Squaring around and trying to bunt is Smith, and he tried to bunt a fastball that was high and outside and couldn't get it down, and it's 1-1. I guess it's better to miss than to potentially lift it and pop it. Still have another chance to sacrifice the runner over into scoring position with this 1-1 count. Let's see if he can get the job done. This one is called a strike, low and on outside corner. and it's 1-2. Smith was squaring around once again, but Smith thought it was out of the zone, which is why he pulled his bat back. And now he's going to have to protect the plate, and now the bunt's going to be off. There's been a couple times today where they tried sacrificing, and they just couldn't get the bunt down. Here's the pitch. Fastball bounces to the left side, making a play deep in the hole, and now going in between the legs of the shortstop, Negretti, was the ball. It was going to be a very hard play to make for the shortstop anyways, because it was a slow roller deep in the hole. He ranged over to his right, but it basically overran it. And it was a play where you might think maybe he's even going to try to make a backhanded grab, but he overran it, and it actually went literally right in between his two legs. And now the Buccaneers have two men on board here. As Diego Cortez comes up for his first at-bat of the day. Diego Cortez is replacing Mbusi/Wayo, who was the first base coach. Now squaring around, and now fouling it is Cortez, and it's 0-1. That's been something that's sort of been plaguing the Buccaneers in this game. It's been very hard just to get that bunt down, sacrifice a runner over, and this is the perfect scenario right here for a sacrifice bunt when you have two runners who basically reached on errors and still no outs in the seventh inning. You're clinging to a 1-0 lead. You would love to get both runners in the scoring position with a sacrifice here. We'll have one more opportunity as the count is 0-1. Estrella checks the runner, and Diego Cortez will get it down to perfection. Charging and now firing sidearm over towards first base was the third baseman Ferreira, but not in time as Diego Cortez blazes down that first base line and beats it out for an infield base hit. And the bases are now loaded, full of Buccaneers. On third base is Michael Ortega. On second is Michael Smith. And Diego Cortez, with that infield base hit, is now on first as Charles Escobar steps up to the dish. 0 for 1, came in the fifth inning and struck out looking. If you remember, Charles Escobar had a huge hit in that first win of the season for the Buccaneers against the High Desert Heat. He had a 2-run base hit. And, of course, the man standing on second right now, Michael Smith, ended up having what was the go-ahead and eventual game-winning hit in the sixth inning of that game. He broke the 2-2 tie with an RBI, and that's the score that they won by. 3-2 was the final for that first victory of the season for the Bucs. Estrella comes set in the stretch, fastball overthrown in the dirt, 59-footer, ball 1-0 the count. Good job behind the dish by Argumendo to make sure that that didn't reach the backstop. Ortega could have a chance of maybe scoring on an issue that's another thing that's sort of plagued the Buccaneers in the earlier season on their side when they're playing defense. Fastball swung on and missed, and it's 1-1. But something that's plagued them is pass balls and wild pitches, particularly in San Diego, is what Coach Bowler said. Felt that they easily could have won Game 2 of that series had they not had so many pass balls. Here's the 1-1 offering from Estrella. Swung on and missed. Nice off-speed pitch that Escobar was well out in front of, and it's 1-2. Gerardo Ramirez is on deck. Ramirez will have his first at-bat, second plate appearance of the game. He walked in his first plate appearance. So here's the pitch from Estrella. This one misses low and away, and it's 2-2. 2 balls, 2 strikes here with no outs and the bases loaded in the bottom of the seventh inning. 1-0 to score. Buccaneers on top of the Legends. Huge moment right here for Charles Escobar and his team. Estrella deals, and this one is in the dirt for ball 3. So a full count, payoff pitch to come. The ultimate payoff pitch, you could say, here up until this point of this game. In the bottom of the seventh, you have a full count and the base is loaded. No outs. What you're looking to do is really, obviously you would love a hit if you're Charles Escobar, but if you could just hit a fly ball to the outfield, you score a run and you double the score to 2-0. Also, maybe if you can hit it in the infield, you're going to score a run as well. Here's the 3-2. Fastball swung on and missed, strike 3, and down goes Escobar for the second time of the day, as Gerardo Ramirez will now come up with 1 out and the bases loaded. So the bases still remain loaded here for the Buccaneers as they lead 1-0. Huge, huge moment in the bottom of the 7th as both starters went 6 innings. Glom giving up no runs, and for the Legends, Scahill going those 6 innings and giving up that 1 run. They both have sent out relief pitchers in the 7th as the relief pitcher for the Legends, Estrella, shook his head a couple times at the catcher's signs and now fires home. Swung on and missed, and is 0-1 to Ramirez. Just in case you're joining, or in case you had forgotten or you want to know who the base runners are, on third base is Michael Ortega, who reached on an error. On second base is Michael Smith, and on first base is Diego Cortez, who had the bunt single down that third base line. This one is swung, and this one is fouled behind the backstop, and that'll be 0-2 to Ramirez. So 2-strike count to protect the plate here for number 19. You want to make sure that you get the ball in the field of play, which Charles Escobar couldn't do in the last at-bat. Here's the pitch from Estrella, and this one is chopped off the home plate, and it's a high chopper at bat, and it will score a run. So that would be an RBI ground out by Ramirez. But that's exactly what you want to see. You want to put the ball in the field of play with the bases loaded, because if you do, you have a very good chance of getting an RBI and scoring the run. And so the Buccaneers now take that 2-0 lead here in the bottom of the 7th inning. So Michael Ortega is the man that scores, as Michael Smith moved up to third base and Diego Cortez in the second. Here comes Luke Asperger for his second at-bat. He's 0-for-1 with a strikeout. This one misses high and in for ball 1. 1-0 the count to Asperger. I believe Asperger was actually up 3-0 in his first at-bat. On deck is Juarez. Here's the pitch from Estrella. Swung line drive over towards the shortstop. He trips a little bit, but fires a dart over to first base in time to get the out. Did the shortstop, Negretti. Negretti fielding it off the 2-hop. It was hit really hard, but it was hit pretty much right at him. He had to cover a little bit of ground over towards his left, but then fires that rocket after tripping a little. But the Buccaneers have doubled the score up. It's now 2-0, so they get that one insurance run as we head to the 8th. You're listening on InlandValleyBaseball.com. Here comes Ryan Franklin, the number 9 hitter in the lineup for the Long Beach Legends, to lead things off in the top of the 8th inning. His team trails 2-0 to the Buccaneers, who just plated their second run in the bottom of the 7th. Here's the pitch. This one's swung and driven to right field. Line drive over there for a base hit. So 1 pitch and 1 runner on base here for the Legends in the top of the 8th inning as they trail 2-0 to the Buccaneers. Still on the mound for the Bucs is Jacob Cage, who entered in the 7th inning. In the 7th inning, he retired the side in order. So that's actually the first man to reach base against him all season long, because this is his first appearance. He comes set in the stretch as Cage. Fires. Squaring around, and now bringing it back is the batter, Turner Conrad, as the pitch is called a strike and it's 0-1. So the Legends trying to play a little bit of small ball as well, just kind of like the Buccaneers tried playing in the last half inning. Ooh, not a good throw over to first base. It bounced over towards Ortega, and Ortega blocking it with his chest. Normally Ortega is behind home plate. Well, that's something he gets used to doing, blocking it with his body. Cage set, fires. The bunt is laid down the third base line, and it's fair. Now firing over to first, and not in time is Asperger, so that'll be another bunt for a hit, as the ball kind of just died down that third base line. And that's the second time we've seen it, one for the Buccaneers and one for the Legends, where they've basically just been trying to lay down sacrifice bunts, but instead it's laid down so well, and the grass is pretty high in the infield that it's, it's a slow roller, and the third baseman can't get to it on time and make the play, as time is now called for by Chris Vopanik, who comes and gives his leadoff hitter a little bit of direction and exactly what he wants to see right here. Leadoff hitter, of course, is Tanner Negretti. Negretti is 0 for 4 in this game. Shortstop has made a couple good plays out in the field for them. If you remember, if you listened to the SCCBL going back a couple years, Chris Vopanik was actually on the Long Beach Legends before taking over for this version of the Legends as the manager last season. This is his second season as the manager for this team. Squaring around and now fouling it back at the screen is Tanner Negretti, so it'll be 0-1. Negretti wearing that left ankle supporter. Third baseman Asperger well on the infield grass, about a couple feet inside the dirt and on that grass there down the hot corner. Michael Ortega as well on that infield grass. The middle infielder is playing double play depth as this one is laid down a little bit harder over to Asperger, and Asperger this time fires in time across the diamond for the out. But the job was done, and both runners now are in scoring position after the sacrifice bunt by Tanner Negretti. Now you got your number 2 and 3 and 4 hitters coming up for the Legends, so big moment for the Legends. It's been a pitcher's duel pretty much the entire way, and it still is. It's 2-0. But all of a sudden, in the bottom of the 7th, the Bucs get 1 run, and they actually had the bases loaded with no outs. And now here, in the top of the 8th, the Legends have runners on 2nd and 3rd with 1 out and their number 2 hitter in the lineup. This number 2 hitter in the lineup has had a great day, as Zach Ferreira, but he checks his swing here and fouls it, and it's 0-1 to number 16. Ferreira's not been retired today. Had a single back in the 1st, walked in the 3rd, and doubled in the 6th. Hit the double out into right field. It initially looked like it was going to go a lot farther than it did, and the right fielder thought that as well as he ran back to the fence and had to come in and tried to make a diving catch but couldn't get to it in time, as this one misses low for ball. And we are starting to have shade for the first time of the day on our field. Out in right field, that is shaded by the adjacent dormitories here at Cal Poly Pomona. And going over towards the first base as well, Michael Ortega's in some shade. Here's the pitch from Cage, and this one's on the outside corner, called strike. It is 1-2 here to Ferreira. On deck is Greg Humbert for the Legends. Big moment right here for Cage with a 2-strike pitch. And 2 runners in scoring position would love nothing more than to get a strikeout. Here's the pitch from the right-handed pitcher, and this one's swung and fouled behind the screen. And we'll do it again, another 1-2 offering to come. It's actually fouled pretty much right at the on-deck batter, Humbert, who didn't even really flinch that much. That was hit really hard off the bat as well. So here comes another 1-2 offering. Cage and Ferreira doing battle. This one swung and lasered up the middle over towards Cesares. Cesares checks the runner and then fires over to first for the out. It is called an out. A nice play made by Ortega, making sort of a backhanded grab and just getting his tiptoe on the bag. And now Chris Vopanik, the manager of the Legends, comes out again and tries to argue with the second base umpire again, as he basically was saying, well, you called our guy off the bag, and now you're saying that their guy's on the bag? That type of thing. And now we're going to have a little conference between the 2 umpires. And the home plate umpire confirms the call, or maybe he couldn't see it as well, so they stick with the original call. So 1 run did come in, and it's now 2-1 on the ground ball RBI by Zach Ferreira. Here comes the number 3 hitter, Greg Humbert, as it's 2-1. The runner did advance up to third base. That is Turner Conrad, who reached on a single. This one misses low for ball 1, 1-0 the count. Well, you got to know where you are in the lineup if you're Cage. You know you're at the 3 spot, typically the best hitter in the lineup. So you have to be careful. Here's the pitch from Cage. Nice breaking ball. The backdoor variety in there for a strike, as the home plate umpire will take some time to wipe off home plate and allow the pitcher to get to see that thing better. 1-1 the count. 2-1 the score. Runner on third base. It's the top of the 8th inning. Bucs clinging to that one-run lead as this one is swung and bounced to the right side. Going deep in the hole is Michael Ortega, who makes the backhanded grab and it fires the first, but the catch cannot be made by Cage, and in comes a run to score, and it's 2-2 as the Legends base runner and hitter on that play is actually down to his knees. Greg Humbert, I'm not sure if exactly what it was, if he kind of hit the bag wrong, you know, sprinting down that first base line. He looks like he's okay as he's now on his feet for the first time and hopping around. But all of a sudden, there were no runs scored for 7 innings by the Long Beach Legends, and just like that, they scored 2 here in the top of the 8th, and they tie this thing up. It's very frustrating if you're a Buccaneer fan, obviously, to be leading pretty much the entire game ever since the second inning. The Bucs were up 1-0, and then you get an insurance run in the bottom of the 7th to make it 2-0, and then all of a sudden the Legends just come back and they tie it up at 2-2 in the top of the 8th. And it must be particularly frustrating when you have the bases loaded, no outs, and you only score 1 run in the case of the Buccaneers. So it's 2-2 here. We have a brand new ball game in the top of the 8th inning as Cage comes set and fires, and this one is swung on, and this one is popped a mile high down the right field line, but foul. So it's 0-1 to Schwartz. Schwartz is 0 for 2, a couple ground outs, and also walked back in the first inning. But it's really tough for the Buccaneers on that last play, and Michael Ortega really made a nice catch of the ball, going well off first base, making a backhanded grab, but then had the errant throw behind the pitcher as the runner goes. Breaking ball called to strike, throw down to second base, not in time. That'll be a stolen bag for the Legends, and now the Legends have the go-ahead run in scoring position here in the 8th inning. Well, if you want to try to steal on a pitch, that was certainly a good one to steal on, as it was an off-speed pitch and it was slow to the plate. Cage comes set, working on a stretch, fires, swung on and missed, and that's strike 3. So Cage gets out of the inning, but the damage was done. The Legends have tied this thing up at 2 apiece as we head to the bottom of the 8th in Cal Poly Pomona. You're listening on InlandValleyBaseball.com. And welcome back to Scalinos Field as we head to the bottom of the 8th inning. It's a brand new ball game as we head to the bottom of the 8th. The Legends have tied it up at 2 apiece as Johnny Juarez comes up at bat for his second at bat of the day. Here's the pitch from Estrella. This one is swung on and lifted into shallow center field. Center fielder Harris has the inside track on it and makes the grab for the first out of the inning. I believe that is the second time Juarez swings at the first pitch, and second time that he is out now here for the Buccaneers as Tanner Thibodeau comes to the plate. Thibodeau saw 4 pitches in his first plate appearance and walked. This one's in at the knees and is strike 1, and 0-1 the count. Thibodeau came in that 6th inning to replace Jack Spahn. Spahn had the lone run for a long time back in the 2nd inning, as this one is swung on and it's 0-2 now, swung on and missed. And then finally, another run was scored in the bottom of the 7th. So the Bucs, you felt, maybe had an insurance run, and then all of a sudden at the top of the 8th, the Legends come with 2 of their own to tie it. This one swung on and missed at a breaking ball, and that is strike 3. It was in the dirt, so the catcher, Argumendo, will have to fire down to first, and does, to complete the strikeout there. So that's the second out here in the 8th inning, as Brendan Campbell, one of the few men who started this game, remains in here for the Buccaneers. This one swung on, and this one is a fly ball in the infield, caught by the third baseman Ferreira for the final out. So a very, very quick inning right there for the Buccaneers. As we'll head to the top of the ninth inning, it remains 2 apiece. Bucs and Legends doing battle at Cal Poly Pomona. It'll be interesting to see what they do, considering this is a non-conference game. Will they continue to play until there's darkness outside, or will they maybe just finish this thing at the end of 9? Of course, both teams do still have one more at bat before we're done with 9, so both teams still have their say on maybe trying to end it in 9. But we'll head back to the top of the ninth after this short break. To the top of 9 we go on InlandValleyBaseball.com. Buccaneers and Legends doing battle on the campus of Cal Poly Pomona, Scalinos Field. 2-2 the score. It is crunch time, to say the very least, here for the Legends and Buccaneers. Not quite sure exactly what they'll do if this remains a tie at the end of 9 innings. We'll try to find that out if we can in between innings, as this one is swung and fouled out of play for strike 1, and it's 0-1 here. Gerardo Ramirez is the new pitcher for the Buccaneers. He has come in to replace Jacob Cage, who went 2 innings and gave up 2 runs in that last inning, as this one misses high for a ball from Ramirez. Well, we mentioned that Ramirez was from Diamond Bar High School earlier in the broadcast, which is why Kevin Bowler knows him. Here's the pitch. And this one's low for a ball. Well, this past season as a junior at the high school level, he had 11 games started, 2.80 ERA, as this fastball misses high and inside. And actually, the home plate umpire was appealing down to first to see if the hitter swung, but he didn't. He checked his swing. So that'll be a ball. And he was 9-2, had 5 complete games. Of course, at the high school level, a complete game would be 7 innings, as this one is a fly ball foul and out of play down the first base line. Michael Ortega chasing it, really sprinting out there. But, of course, it was out of play. So we have a full count. This is a big, big pitch for Ramirez. Major difference between retiring the first hitter and potentially losing him, as he comes with a breaking ball that's called strike 3 in at the knees, and a dejected Michael Agramonte will head back to his dugout. And he is very dejected, taking a lot of time to head back to that third base dugout, as Ramirez retires his first hitter. Very, very good job to, fall behind the count and to come back and strike out the hitter. Make sure that first runner doesn't get on board. That is a fastball on the outside corner, called strike 1. 0-1 the count to Jake Harris. Harris 0 for 3 here today for the Legends, as Ramirez works pretty quickly. This one's a breaking pitch in the dirt, and it's 1-1. It's funny, you look at a couple of the players that started and are still in, and one of them is Campbell. Campbell behind home plate. That, of course, is the toughest position to play the full 9 innings for, as this pitch is a fastball inside, ball 2, 2-1 the count. This one is swung on, a little chopper up the middle. Charging is Suarez and firing to first, not in time, as the umpire says that he beat it out. So that will be an infield hit for Harris. And we've had a lot of those today, where the ball has been slow roller and just couldn't make the play in time. Suarez did a really good job, actually, as it was hit right up the middle, directly up the middle on that chopper. Kind of flung it sidearm in one fell sweep over to first base, and the hometown crowd thought that he had the play. It was very close, but the umpire has the best view, and he said he was safe. Fastball swung on and missed, and it's 0-1 to Joe Argumendo. Argumendo is 0 for 3. Pickoff throw. Legends dugout yelling back. You don't hear that too often in the Summer Collegiate League. That was like a major point of a lot of baseball coaches at the high school and collegiate level a few years back. All all the bench players you would always hear yelling back. But as I said, you don't hear it too much in the Summer League, but we just heard a little one right there as time is called for by Argumendo, the catcher for the Long Beach Legends. He will now step out of the box, and Campbell will now step out of the batter's box as well and meet Ramirez halfway in between the mound and home plate to talk a little strategy. 2-2 the score. Buccaneers and Legends tied. Top of the ninth inning. 1 out. Runner on first. The go-ahead runner is Jake Harris, who had the infield single up the middle, and that was a little bit of a pitch out right there, as Campbell actually caught it underhanded in the crouch. The runner did not go, though. Here's the pitch, and this is right back to the pitcher comebacker over to Ramirez. Nice play made by the shortstop. Oh, wow, what a play made over there. That was actually the second baseman, Smith, who caught it off the bounce and then turned it over to the first base to complete the 1-4-3 double play. So, wow, what a nice, exceptional defensive play made right there. And we'll head to the bottom of the ninth. 2-2 remains the score here at Cal Poly Pomona. And welcome back to Cal Poly Pomona. We head to the bottom of the ninth inning. 2-2 the score between the Legends and Buccaneers, as the Legends were retired in the last inning by Gerardo Ramirez. Here comes Rudy Cesares, as this one's on the outside corner, called strike one. 0-1 the count to Rudy. Rudy came in the sixth inning and flew out to the third baseman, so he's 0 for 1 on the day. On deck is Ortega, and it looks like Acosta has a bat in the dugout and will be in the hole. This one's swung on and driven to the left side. Deep in the hole, the shortstop ranges and throws over to first, not in time, as we have another infield base hit, this time for Rudy Cesares. There have been so many infield base hits in this game. You can almost not be able to count them on your hand. As Michael Ortega steps up to the plate, and the leadoff man is on board here in the ninth inning for the Buccaneers. Buccaneers hoping to end this thing in the walk-off fashion here, as Ortega is squaring around very early, and Estrella throws over to first base to just make sure that Cesares wasn't maybe napping and wasn't maybe already planning on heading to second. So Acosta is on deck now. He will hit next. Squaring around and laying one down directly in front of the catcher, and throwing it down to second is the catcher, and it's an error made by him. It goes into the outfield, but Cesares was sliding, so he couldn't head into third. But now there are 2 runners on base with no outs here in the ninth inning, as it looks like Smith will still hit. Acosta did have a bat in his hand, but it looked like the plans have changed now that the Buccaneers have their first 2 men on base, and Michael Smith at the plate, a guy who's, well, been on base all 3 times here today. And now Chris Vopanek, the manager for the Long Beach Legends, is going to make a conference call with his pitcher and entire infield, as well as the catcher. They're all meeting on the mound. Smith, Ortega, Coach Bowler, Coach Smith, they're all halfway in between third base and home plate down that third baseline. They're talking a little baseball strategy now. And this is really a huge moment for the Inland Valley Buccaneers. We mentioned they had a tough time in San Diego, and particularly in this scenario where they lost in 13 innings in a walk-off fashion. They'd love to reverse the script here today on a Monday at Cal Poly Pomona. Maybe walk off in the bottom of the ninth. 7:18 here local time. So you figure that if they haven't already agreed that this game's going 9 innings no matter what, you could definitely get at least one more inning of play in. As everybody heads back to their spots. Estrella to the mound. Cesares to second base. And Ortega to first base. Well, Michael Smith steps up to the plate. Michael Smith, 3 for 3. Squaring around, laying one down to perfection right in front of the catcher again, and that's going to be another infield base hit. Wow, there's a miscommunication with Argumendo and the pitcher Estrella. It was almost like Argumendo didn't want to necessarily pick it up again and potentially risk throwing another error. And then he kind of left his pitcher out to dry as Estrella. I mean, the bunt was pretty much 3 or 4 feet in front of home plate. It had just made it on the beginning of the infield grass cut. And there was really no chance for Estrella to get to that ball, especially with somebody as speedy as Smith on the base pass. And now the bases are loaded with no outs. And Diego Cortez at the plate. Cortez 1 for 1 with a single, and his only at bat in the 7th inning. The infield will come in here for the Legends, as obviously they need to make the play at the plate. What a wacky final couple innings. After we had 6.5 innings with only 1 run scored, the Bucs get 1 in the bottom of the 7th to make it 2-0. The Legends respond with 2 of their own in the top of the 8th to tie it up at 2-2. Then the Bucs go down in order in like rapid fashion in the bottom of the 8th. And all of a sudden, here we are again in this topsy-turvy affair. And the bottom of the 9th, the bases are loaded. A lot of stalling tactics going on here. Actually, we believe we will see an outfielder coming in to play in the infield here. So we've got 5 guys in the infield, and 6 if you include the catcher. And 2 outfielders, 1 in left center, 1 in right center. Cortez swings at the first pitch and misses, and it's 0-1. So right now, if you're Diego Cortez, if you just pull it down the right field line or hit it to the left field, this game is over. Of course, all the infielders are in on that infield grass, so if you hit a rocket, it's probably going to be very hard for them to get to, too. There's a pitch from Estrella. The 0-1 is swung and fouled out of play behind the backstop, and it's 0-2. So Diego Cortez is hoping to be the walk-off hero here for the Inland Valley Buccaneers. Acosta, who was on deck earlier in the inning, is on deck once again for the Bucs. Here's the 0-2 offering, and this one misses outside, and it's 1-2. Good eye right there by Cortez. Got to show some good plate discipline in this scenario. When you have the bases loaded, it's a tie game, it's the bottom of the 9th, and you're just looking for anything that you can get a bat on and kind of drive. Really just make contact with and put in a place that the fielders in the field are not. Estrella comes set out of the stretch, fires, swung on, and it gets by the catcher, and the runners are off the bags, and now down over at first and safe at first is Michael Smith. As the ball got by the catcher, so we have more wacky things going on, but the ball got by the catcher, and they had to fire down to first for the strikeout, but wow. You can't run down to first when the bases are loaded unless the guy at third base is trying to come home and score and everybody's leaving, and that's not what happened there as Cesar is held up at third. Ortega alertly saw Cesar is holding up, and then he went back to second, and Michael Smith was about halfway in between first and second and barely made it back to first base. Otherwise, that would have been a very, very tough double play. But there's still only 1 out, and here comes Acosta. So Acosta will get his 1 at-bat in a huge situation, to say the least. 1 out, bases loaded, bottom of the 9th inning, tied game. Here's the pitch. Breaking ball in at the knees, called strike 1. 0-1 the count for Nathaniel Acosta from the University of Redlands. Another SCIAC player. We have a few SCIAC players on our roster, both with the Pirates and the Buccaneers. Fastball swung on and missed, and it's 0-2. So Acosta falls behind 0-2 as Estrella is trying to pull a rabbit out of a hat and potentially get out of this inning. Second time Buccaneers have had bases loaded, no outs. The other time they didn't score, they scored 1 run, as this one is swung on and fouled down the first base line. The other time they scored that 1 run. And it's 0-2 still to Acosta. Straight taking his time, leg kick and fires. This one swung and driven through the left side, past the outstretched glove of the shortstop, and in comes Cesares. Acosta is the walk-off hero for the Buccaneers as he comes up with the RBI single to score Cesares, and the Bucs have won 3-2 in the bottom of the ninth in a walk-off fashion as they mob him in between first and second base. So how about that? Acosta off the bench in the ninth inning with one at-bat, and he has the game winner for the Buccaneers. And so the Bucs will win this game 3-2. We talked about it in this inning, but it was really a pitcher's duel. And for 6.5 innings, it was only 1-0. Bucs scored that first run in the second on a double by Jack Spahn, and then he ended up scoring on an RBI by Michael Smith. Then we go fast forward all the way after the 7th inning stretch and into the bottom of the 7th. And that's the next run that was scored. And that was scored on an RBI ground out by Gerardo Ramirez. He scored Michael Ortega on the play. And that was the inning that we mentioned that they had the bases loaded and only scored 1 run. And then it was 2-0 as we headed to the 8th. And then at the top of the 8th, the Legends got 2 and tied it up at 2 apiece. And then back and forth we go. On the bottom of the 9th, Nathaniel Acosta comes off the bench and rips the RBI single through the left side hole and wins this game 3-2 in the 9th inning. So for the Buccaneers, they will improve to 3-8 and remain 2-4 in league play. They have a big series to come Tuesday and Wednesday. Those 2 games will be against Palm Springs in Palm Springs. The Power only with 1 loss all season, that is to the Pirates. And we mentioned it earlier in the day, but if you weren't listening earlier in the day, Andrew Alvarez of the Pirates has been named the pitcher of the week for the week here in the SCCBL. But for the Buccaneers, they showed some great fight and great resolve. You know, when you lead a game that long and all of a sudden, you know, you're 2-8 and the other team ties it up at 2 apiece, and they are 11-3, and they are a really good team, and you feel like maybe it's just not meant to be. The Buccaneers said not so fast. They knew that they still had this game in their hands, and they came through in that last at-bat as Nathaniel Acosta has the RBI single, scoring Rudy Cesares to win the game. And Cesares, if you remember, he's just had a great game ever since he entered in the middle infield in this game today. But great job for the Buccaneers. What a win for them. And as we said, they will head to Palm Springs tomorrow. That game will be live on PalmSpringsPowerBaseball.com. So if you want to listen to that, that's at 7 o'clock. So you can tune in there and listen to that game. I will be live here at Cal Poly Pomona once again tomorrow as the Pirates take on the East LA Dodgers. That will be a doubleheader. So we'll be live at 2 o'clock for the game 1 of that. That'll be the second game that they face each other this season. If you remember the first game, it was 10-0 Pirates as the Pirates struck out 17 hitters. And Kevin Glom, who actually started this game and does not get the win today, he went 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, no runs, but will get a no decision. He was part of that 17 strikeout performance for the Pirates. But he will not get the win, as we mentioned, because the game ended up getting tied in the 8th inning. And then in came, in the 9th, of course, Gerardo Ramirez, who will get the victory for the Inland Valley Buccaneers. So that's a wrap on this game. So glad you joined us. My name is Dave Silveri, and we'll see you next time.